What's up, everybody? Tonight we're going to talk about Tank Davis versus Jake Paul and more when we come right back. Welcome to another episode of Ring Walk Boxing Podcast. I am Bean, and tonight we got a series of different boxing matches to discuss. But just before I get into that, I want to say shout outs to In Your Face magazine, of course. For those who didn't know, but I kind of show this every week. In Your Face magazine. And I also want to say shout outs to Ozzy's Catering here located in Cincinnati, Ohio. If you use Ozzy's Catering, please tell him that Ring Walk Boxing Podcast sent you. Thank you. All right, so we're going to talk about recap of the fights that came on last night. On the Zone, Golden Boy, you had Joel versus Eduardo Hernandez in a 6-round fight. In round 2, Hernandez was dropped by a body shot. In round 3, he was caught with a nasty combination and relentless pressure. And Joel stopped Eduardo in the 3rd round of the fight on that DAZN card. Also on that same card, we had Kevin Johnson versus Ruslan Abdullayev in an 8-round match. Kevin Johnson was a step behind Ruslan. As a consequence, he lost that fight by decision, with Abdullayev being the winner last night. It was a pretty good fight, and if you ask my opinion, it's definitely worth going on YouTube or see if you can pull up the highlights or the full fight on YouTube to run that back. The co-main event on the card in women's boxing, you had the sister of boxer Sebastian Fundora, Gabriela Fundora, versus Alexis Kubicki. And I believe it was a situation with her opponent, Alexis. I think she was a late replacement or something of that nature. But correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. But I think she was a replacement last night. Now, Alexis, shout outs to her. She's definitely a warrior because she stood out there in the pocket most of the time. And even when she was backed up against the ropes, she was out there swinging. So she held her ground and she wasn't being no pushover. But I think that Gabriela's style, her length, her reach, her speed was too much for Alexis. Fundora just had the better timing. She had the better speed, the better punch accumulation. And in round 7, she stopped Kubicki when the ref waved the fight off. So that was a pretty good fight and definitely a good display of women's boxing. And I feel like Gabriela Fundora, she's going to do very well representing the women's boxing. And some people feel like they are more of a fan of Gabriela Fundora than they are of her brother Sebastian Fundora. A lot of people feel like she's a better boxer than he is. So that's definitely subjective and to whatever you may, whatever may be to your liking, so to speak. Now the main event: Oscar Collazo versus Jason Vason. Um, it was a good fight. It was definitely a good fight. A lot of action. Um, and I was able to sit back and watch the fight with my pops. So we were watching it, and I can say that it was a pretty good card last night. It was a pretty good card. Now, some of the stoppages were not um were not cool. You know what I mean? A couple stoppages were questionable um last night, but overall, it made for a pretty good card. Um, Now I'm gonna just say, let's just put ourselves in a certain scene right now, right? We're at a campfire and we're talking boxing, like campfire talk. Now, a couple of people on different platforms and what's going around social media, even like at the conference after the fight, different media outlets and reporters, they can't help but to bring up Floyd Mayweather, right? So by nature, Floyd versus Bud Crawford comparisons do come about. Now, to be fair, Bud did address that situation to the reporter. He said, "I'm the best in my era," and that Floyd was the best in his era. But people like to make the comparisons, right? So let's just for the fun of it, not that what Bud wasn't saying, what he was saying wasn't true, but let's just do it just for the fun of it, right? Because we always talk about fantasy matches and stuff like that. Um, so just going back and forth and reading different things over FB and chat groups and stuff like that. I just want to ask the question, and I would like y'all opinion in the chat, right? Um, Now with the situation at hand, in the predicament that Bud was in fighting Canelo, Bud had not been active. He went up a few weight classes, and he also became undisputed. Now, do you feel, in your opinion, if Floyd was in that position and Floyd had ring rust or hadn't been in the ring in the same amount of time as Crawford, would he have went up two weight classes? Which some may say three weight classes, being that he fought one fight at 154. Do you feel that Floyd would have went up three weight classes to fight Canelo or a level of an opponent that was equivalent to Canelo with those same in that same situation? Let me know if you think he would, or let me know if you think that he would not have. Um, let's talk about a couple of upcoming fights. Um, November 8th, Jojo Diaz versus Floyd Schofield, aka Kid Austin. Some folks, from what I was reading, the different comments on FB and different platforms, certain people are not liking this matchup. They feel like Floyd Schofield should be fighting, of course, Shakur Stevenson or somebody like that. But how do you think Jojo Diaz will fare against Floyd Schofield? I would like to know y'all opinion on what y'all feel. And also, give me 1 second, y'all. I want to read a couple of these chats here. Shout outs, greetings to fam. I appreciate you stopping through and showing love always. And make sure anybody entering the chat, please hit the thumbs up. Hit that thumbs up, please, to help the algorithm, um, so it can do its thing. All right. So November 8th, on the same card as Floyd Schofield versus Jojo Diaz, we have Erickson Lubin versus Virgil Ortiz. Erickson Lubin is definitely one of those guys that he's out there. He's tough. You know, we saw him get the worser end in the fight when he fought. Speaking of Gabriela Fundora, her brother Sebastian Fundora fought Erickson Lubin, but Lubin was in there a warrior. You know, he has good skill, good technique, nice feet. You know what I'm saying? All around attributes are pretty good. How will he look against Virgil Ortiz? How will Virgil Ortiz look against Erickson Lubin? You know, I'm gonna go back and look at some more footage of Virgil Ortiz, but I think that Erickson Lubin, if he's smart and uses like somewhat of that blueprint of the Shakur Stevenson versus Zepeda without being against the ropes so much. I went back and watched that fight yesterday, and although Shakur did very good, to me, he went with his back against the ropes too many times. And as we recall, early in the fight, when he was against the ropes, and Virgil slipped that right hand that clipped him flush on his chin, it buckled him. I don't think that that's necessarily the best strategy to stay on the ropes. You know, I think you want to circle back out, move around, pivot, and all that, and feint, but stay in that center of the ring. Use the ring, but try to stay from keeping your back against the ropes as much as possible, because a person like Virgil Ortiz could line you up, and they could land what we call the quote unquote the unalive shot, that shot that knocks you out if it catches you flush. So let me know what y'all think. Your predictions: Erickson Lubin versus Virgil Ortiz prediction. Let me know your prediction. Jojo Diaz versus Floyd Schofield. Let me know what you think. Now, October the 11th, there's going to be two different boxing matches, two different networks. You're going to have Boots Ennis versus Lima, October the 11th. You're also going to have that same day Dave Allen versus Arslanbek Magmadov. I think I pronounced that right. Arslanbek Magmadov. Now, Magmadov looks to be a pretty ferocious guy. He got those eyebrows, and he got the size. He just looks real mean or whatever. But we did see Ajit Kabiel stop Magmadov with body shots. No matter what he did, he made sure he zoned in on the body of Magmadov, and he slowly started to, what we call, take the steam and the air out of the tire. I think to devise a plan that's going to beat Magmadov, the body punishment will be a big key to that puzzle. So in your blueprint, you definitely want to target the midsection of Magmadov. I feel like Dave Allen needs to work on ripping those inside hooks to the body, those jabs to the body of Magmadov, in the solar plexus area, in the liver area, on either side. and just keep working his body as much as you can, but also being responsible enough to make sure you're not caught slipping. You know what I mean? You got to be careful when you dig into the body of your opponent because you don't want to catch that counter punch or something like that, or the punch you don't see. But I think that's a good matchup. Dave Allen, if he can stop Magmadov, that'll be a good win for him. And I have seen footage of Dave Allen calling out Deontay Wilder. Now, there's so much going on with moving parts in the heavyweight division. You know, you got Dave Allen somewhat calling out Deontay Wilder at some point, or that he felt that he could beat Deontay Wilder. But I don't really think Deontay Wilder's so focused on Dave Allen. Maybe down the line, but right now he's got bigger fish to fry. So I would say that Deontay Wilder would possibly be chasing or winning a fight with Anthony Joshua. Then we saw the face-off with Wilder versus Andy Ruiz when they faced off, when they were both at location for the Netflix fight for Canelo versus Bud Crawford. Now that circulated or whatever, and it's been doing, probably going viral or whatever. So I want to know, in y'all opinion, do y'all feel like Deontay Wilder versus Andy Ruiz will actually happen? I've seen some things in different group chats or just kind of replying back to people on Facebook, and I can't say what's for certain right now as far as the inside scoop. Maybe Cam J, if you're watching, you may know, or Mike Ware. But I saw where a guy was saying that an offer was made pretty much, or something was thrown out there, that Deontay Wilder wanted 70-30. Deontay Wilder wants 70% of the pie, and for Andy Ruiz to get 30%. I feel like if it's true that Andy Ruiz had a counter offer saying he wants a 50-50 split, to me a 50-50 split is more than fair. Because what has Wilder done that much more than Ruiz? Yes, he had more title defenses, but it can be argued that his opponents were not, that they were like lower tier opponents or like average opponents. So at some point they both were champions. WBC champ was Deontay Wilder, but then just that fast, defeating Anthony Joshua, Andy Ruiz became unified champ. So to me, a 50-50 split is fair. If Ruiz and Wilder fight does happen, it's definitely a fight I wouldn't mind seeing. And hypothetically, if the fight happens, initially I take Andy Ruiz to stop Deontay Wilder in the late rounds, right? But just being logical, Deontay Wilder always has a puncher's chance. So if he can line up Ruiz and land and detonate that shot, he may stop Ruiz, which that's going to be big, y'all, because think about it. Andy Ruiz has only been dropped by Chris Arreola, and Anthony Joshua. He's never been stopped. He's never been knocked out. So if Wilder can be the first to stop and knock him out, I think that would make more of a buzz for him to step in and fight Anthony Joshua. If Anthony Joshua doesn't have a fight locked in with maybe Tyson Fury, because we know AJ's been calling out Tyson Fury, and AJ will be back in the ring in 2026 now that he's healed up. On the sidelines, you're going to have guys like Martin Bacoli probably calling out AJ. Andy Ruiz will probably be calling out AJ for a trilogy. So you have all that kind of action. Or even, at some point next year, Anthony Joshua rematch against Daniel Dubois. That's another fight that at some point in 2026, that fight just could manifest. We'll see, right? We will definitely see what 2026 holds in the sport of boxing. Now, still talking about the heavyweight division, Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker is definitely that type of guy to where he doesn't play no games. He's very meticulous. He's very serious about his strategy, his approach to every fight, and he takes every fight seriously. He doesn't do like some people who kind of get in a comfort zone. He's always on edge, so he always wants to make sure he's at his best physicality, and he's always at his best mentally as well. Well, the curveball came because, as we know, we all wanted to see undisputed. Joseph Parker versus Alexander Usyk. But with Usyk saying he needed more time and then claiming that he had an injury and all that stuff, that's kind of stalling out the negotiations to even get started for Parker versus Usyk. Well, now Parker, not wanting to get ring rust, wanting to stay active, he's going to take on the younger UK fighter, Fabio Wardley. Now, we saw the last outing with Fabio Wardley, a young guy still learning his way, but he has devastating punch power. He has that, what you call a puncher's chance, that get out of jail free card, kind of like Deontay Wilder to an extent. So, the last fight we saw with Fabio Wardley was Justice Huoney, the Australian fighter, right? Well, Huoney was actually winning that fight, just boxing and moving and all that. And he couldn't get it together. Fabio Wardley couldn't get it together, right? But as the fight went on, he just did enough to start utilizing his right hand and eventually was able to catch Justice Huoney flush and get the stoppage, whereas some people felt that Justice Huoney, although he was hurt, he could have continued, but they felt like the ref didn't give him that opportunity, that he waved off the fight or whatever. That being said, I'm taking Joseph Parker to beat Fabio Wardley. But like I said, there's always that chance that Fabio Wardley could land the money shot. But say that Joseph Parker does win and is victorious over Justice Huoney, then maybe Justice Huoney could fight a rematch with Fabio Wardley. They'll both be coming off a loss, and they can rematch each other. Now, if Parker loses to Fabio Wardley, that kind of changes up the whole trajectory of the fact that Parker was going to be fighting or in line to fight Usyk for undisputed. Now, if he's derailed and Fabio Wardley is successful against him, does that mean that Fabio Wardley gets a shot at Usyk? And style made fights. The way I see it, Parker is still a more complex style versus Usyk than Fabio Wardley would be. Although Fabio Wardley potentially could beat Parker, I feel like Usyk would beat Fabio Wardley. I just feel like the style of Usyk is going to beat that taller, bigger guy, kind of like how he did Dubois, like he did with Anthony Joshua. He even beat Tyson Fury, who fights nothing like AJ or nothing like Dubois. Just the bigger guys, the bigger, taller guys, Usyk seems to have a blueprint and a style to be able to negate a lot of their power, a lot of their size with his lateral foot movement, his angles, his sharpness, the fact that he's a southpaw. Um, just all those different things intertwined makes him a complicated and complex opponent for anybody in the heavyweight division. Now, with Boots Ennis versus Lima, that's another fight and that's going to be on October the 11th. That's another fight that people are somewhat frowning upon. There's a lot of Boots supporters and fans. I myself, I like Boots Ennis. I feel like many people are saying that he passes the eye test. But even if he beats Lima, that to most of us is not enough for us to go by to know if he really belongs in talks with people like Bud Crawford, people of that magnitude. So, I mean, he needs to shine in this fight. You're fighting an opponent that most people don't really know about like that. So, in my estimation and what I feel, he needs to go ahead and make a statement with that type of an opponent. Because if he doesn't make it a statement, he kind of somewhat struggles with a person no one has heard of. It might not be the best look. It may not make people want to see him versus Bud Crawford as much. Because Bud just beat Canelo at 168. So for him to beat Canelo at 168, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if Boots struggled with Lima, they're going to look at it like Bud is up here at a level fighting a Canelo and made it look easy, although he said it wasn't easy. But then you're fighting somebody a couple steps down like Lima and you're struggling with this guy. They're going to look at Boots like you don't belong in the same conversation as Bud Crawford. All that being said, back to my original statement, styles do make fights, but people are going to still look at it as a measuring stick, and that would be kind of some people's argument, in my opinion. All right, y'all. So let's talk about Jake Paul versus Tank Davis. To me, it's an exhibition. It's what I consider to be an exhibition, right? Yes, Jake Paul does train like a boxer. I'm pretty sure he eats his meals proportioned a certain way. He probably watches his calorie intake and he does all the little small fine things that a boxer does. Jumps rope, probably does his swimming, runs track, uh, all that kind of stuff. And nowadays they have more advanced science and more, different ways of compound exercises, things like that. So he probably has the best state of the art equipment and has the best trainers and nutritionists and things like that. Probably has his own chef, I would think. So he does all the things that a fighter does, but it's still like a question mark. Do we consider him a real fighter? Do you consider Jake Paul as a real fighter? Because when you think of real fighters, then you gotta start talking about as far back as you can think, all the way up to this date. When you think of real fighters, come on, y'all. It's common knowledge that we know Tommy the Hitman Hearns was a real boxer. Sugar Ray Leonard, a real boxer. Muhammad Ali, real boxer. Joe Frazier, real boxer. Bud Crawford, Canelo, real boxers. So can we put Jake Paul in the mix of these guys? And really in the conversation, it wouldn't sound right. You know what I mean, to people. To me, I look at him like he's good entertainment. He's good for the sport for what he does. And as Deontay Wilder said in his interview recently, he's not your typical. The way he does his thing is not what you're typically used to seeing. The way that he came into the boxing world, he came in being famous through YouTube and made his name through YouTube and started off fighting ex MMA fighters. So with the weight difference, I'm assuming Jake Paul, he may walk around at, I don't know if he walks around at 200 pounds. I have to do more research on that part of it, but he probably walks around 200 pounds. So Tank Davis is like 135 pounds, maybe 140 at best. There's a big weight difference between these two guys. I mean, even if Jake Paul, for instance, came in to fight at 185, and Tank's, say, for instance, he was 145, that's still a 40-pound weight differential between these two guys. People are trying to make sense of it. Like, how do you... And then the height difference, Tank got all the power in the world, but he's very short compared to a much taller Jake Paul. Jake Paul's going to have more range, of course, naturally. The taller guy with the longer arms. So how does this even come to fruition? We know that Jake Paul is the type of guy who more or less will clout chase and call out all these people, because at some point prior to calling out Tank Davis, he was calling out Anthony Joshua. He called out Deontay Wilder. And then I did see a little video with Adrian Broner making reference to Jake Paul, saying that he would knock out Jake Paul. And so we know that was just, part of a thing to kind of maybe get the bag, you know what I'm saying? Everybody's saying you're going to get the bag, right? Well, I feel like Tank is going to get that bag. And you can't really hate him for that. I mean, hey, at the end of the day, these are prize fighters, and he's looking at it from the standpoint of, hey, I'll get a bag. I might rest my mind just for a quick second. Then after this fight, I'll get back in there and have a couple more fights. And then I'm going to retire. Because Tank Davis said he only had like 2 or 3 more fights left anyway. And I think one was the rematch eventually, hopefully. We get to see him rematch Lamont Roach Jr. because that's the type of fight to where people are arguing that he lost the fight, although the fight was a draw. I think it'll just make a lot of sense to run the fight back and get a clear victory on your side. You know what I'm saying? Tank Davis needs to get a clear victory over Lamont Roach Jr. that can put it to rest that Lamont Roach is on his level. He has to make a statement. I would hate for him just to leave it as a draw and they never fought again. That just is not going to look or even sit right with the boxing community. And one more thing I want to talk about, maybe 2 more things, but I would like to also talk about Luis Ortiz. King Kong Ortiz had a fight, and I wasn't sure that we'd ever see him in the ring again. I don't know what they have his age at right now, because he's from Cuba, and they were saying that a lot of times it can be kind of slightly off with their ages and stuff like that. But I'm gonna put it in just to see how old is Luis Ortiz. Okay, they have Luis Ortiz at the age of 46 years old. 46 years old. And just had a fight. So you're talking about a guy that was probably born the same year as me in 1980. Or maybe even 1979. But he just had a fight recently, y'all, and he won by first round knockout. And he was most known for being called the boogeyman in the division of the heavyweights, but he also was known for his two fights with Deontay Wilder. Those were the fights that really put him on the map. Now, he fought his recent opponent, Philip Pinson. I'm not too privy to this guy, Philip Pinson. And the guy only had 8 wins and 4 losses and 3 draws. So that's only a total of like 15 fights. So this guy hadn't been around that long. So it sounds like it was more of a just keep busy fight. It really wasn't nobody who would have been a threat for him. The last fight that he had with a serious name was back in 2022 when he fought Andy the Destroyer Ruiz. And he lost by unanimous decision. Just before he fought Andy Ruiz, he fought the Prince, Charles Martin, back in the same year. In 2022, he fought Charles Martin earlier that year and won by TKO, but it was not an easy win. If y'all remember, Charles Martin dropped Luis Ortiz 2 or 3 times before he got stopped himself. So Luis Ortiz was definitely showing signs of aging and signs of, some signs of decline, reflexes and stuff like that. But nonetheless, he just had a fight this past weekend. So what's next for Luis Ortiz? I don't know. I would say maybe if he can get another big money fight from a decent name, if Andy Ruiz does not fight Deontay Wilder, maybe Ruiz versus Ortiz too. Or my pick is the old legend, the man that just got out of prison, who did a long time in prison, go by the name of the President. The President, a.k.a. Ike Ibuchi. So seeing Ike versus Luis Ortiz, that would be a pretty good fight because I think Ike is up in age as well. Luis Ortiz is 46, alongside Manny Pacquiao, who's the age of 46. So these are like the oldest fighters in the sport of boxing in the modern day. So let's see what the age of Ike Ibuchi is. Okay, Ike Ibuchi. Oh, whoa, he's 52 years old. So he is 8 years older than Luis Ortiz. Man, 52 years old, and he's got a license to fight in boxing. So yeah, I mean, I would say why not? I mean, if he's going to fight somebody, he can't fight these prime guys. He can't fight these guys in their 30s or whatever. He's 52 years old. Let him fight Luis Ortiz, who's age 46. And if he doesn't look good against him, he needs to retire. Ike Ibuchi, 21 wins, no losses, no draws. So if he fights Luis Ortiz, who knows? That could be another win under his belt, or it could be his first loss, So let me know what y'all think about that matchup. Luis Ortiz, age 46, against Ike Ibiabuchi, age 52. Hypothetically, if that match happened, what would be your prediction? Let me know, please, in the chat. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get ready to wrap up tonight's segment. I appreciate all that came through. And for those who didn't see this, hopefully you run it back later tonight or tomorrow. You know, if you're at work or whatever, throw your Bluetooth, your earpiece or your headphones in your ear at work and check out Ring Walk Boxing Podcast. You know, going live every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button. Even if you come late, even if you come like to run this back, hit that thumbs up because it helps the algorithm. A fight party or at the gym, different functions, reach out to somebody if you know them. Hey, if they follow boxing, hey, tell them you know a cool podcast, Ring Walk Boxing Podcast, and you think they should take a quick second to check it out. It's worth a watch. I've had a lot of different people on this platform. Like about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had Stacey Mayweather, the cousin of Floyd Mayweather. Some months back, we had Cincinnati, Ohio legend Nate Tubbs, ex boxer, and also the brother of the former champion Tony TNT Tubbs, who was most notably known for fighting Mike Tyson. And then the biggest name on Nate Tubbs' record was Corey Sanders and David Tua. So make sure you run those back on YouTube. Look up Nate Tubbs versus David Tua, Nate Tubbs versus Corey Sanders, and look up Tony Tubbs versus whoever. You'll see different fights, or look up his resume, and you can go on YouTube and watch some of his fights. Tony Tubbs had a very good style. He used to spar with Muhammad Ali. So if you go back and watch the episode with me and Nate, we go real deep. We talk about Muhammad Ali. We talk about Mike Tyson, his relationship with Mike Tyson. It just goes really, really deep. I can't explain it all right now because we talk for a good hour 15 minutes. So if you go back and look up Nate Tubbs, the story of Nate Tubbs is there. And in the future, we hope to have more guests here at Ring Walk Boxing Podcast, okay? All right, so thanks for your time. Have a safe night. Be blessed, everyone. And we'll catch you on the next round. Peace.